Hello and welcome to This Is Ibrox. This is your live match reaction from Motherwell versus Rangers. The game has just finished. It finished one each between Motherwell and Rangers, and I don't even know where to begin. JB, where do we start for there?
Yeah, it's a sore one. No doubt, there's obviously no doubt in that. I think we've seen the worst of the team today. I'd probably say since Danny Roll's come in, out with Bram Bergen, I'd probably say it's our worst performance. I think all the stuff that's frustrated us all season long, we've seen it. The little bit of niggles, the being outran, the outfought. We've been full of praise for the manager this season, and rightfully so, based on what he's inherited and how he's turned it round and stuff. But I think he's had an absolute shocker tonight. I thought his starting 11 was all over the shop. I can't see much sense in any of that tonight. The the started off really well. So 7 minutes. Say you could see the team looked up for it. We see they had the bite. We scored, and you thought, "Oh, right, here we go." I had a little bit of Aberdeen away vibes, where you thought, "Right, we're going to be quite relentless here." And then as soon as we got that seventh, as soon as we got that goal, that was it. Literally, that was it for the remainder of the 83 minutes or whatever it was. The players just looked disinterested. I think they thought that the game was. I don't know whether they thought the game was won, but as I say, we'll walk our way through the game, mate. But I think if we kind of start at the starting 11, I think it just didn't make a lot of logical sense to me. And what I thought, my fear on how it was all going to pan out is how it panned out. I thought that the fullbacks today were horrendous, absolutely horrendous. The pair of them, Magoma looked like a wee boy again. Didn't look comfortable on the pitch. The environment, he was kicking everything up in the air. I can't picture him playing one ball to more in the first half. He was hiding. His set pieces were awful. Tavernier, your captain, was horrendous. The first half, I mean, I don't know if there's any statos on. I don't know how many times he gave the ball away. And I thought the wingers in the first half were absolutely non-existent. And the big Chimiti up top, we've seen the Youssef Chimiti that we've grown to dislike. So, yeah, the 11 for me, I think I honestly think he's had an absolute shocker. Historically, we've been sympathetic because we go kind of go, he's working with what he's got, but that's not an excuse tonight. There was better options on the bench, and I think he is massively underestimated what we were going to face today. I think he thought we'll be okay in the fact that we've got better players than them. However, that doesn't count for nothing if you haven't got the work rate.
Yeah, JB, it's passionate stuff. Obviously, you're speaking there from just coming away from the club watching it. I think the fact that we've got 120 people in the studio just now, comments upon comments, I'm trying to keep up with them all. But we'll go back. We'll look at that starting 11. I was the same as you. I think every WhatsApp chat I was in, whether it was my brother, whether it was the boys on the bus, everybody saying that the starting 11 was the wrong choice, the wrong formation potentially as well. So we start with Butland in goal. Tav, Jigga, Suter, Magoma, Chukwani, Raskin, Diamande, Gassama, Chermiti, and Moore. Don't know why we're not playing Romans. Thought he has done really, really well since we've seen him. Whether that be that he's not match fit, having played at the weekend, and to be honest, looked absolutely fine. It looked as if we were preserving him for this game, but he didn't play. The midfield three, probably not much different from what we would have expected, but Tav and Jigga, maybe one or the other you could have had, but to have both on from the start, I just thought Fernandez was the obvious option. In saying that, I actually thought that Jigga and Suter did do well, but initially, if we're talking about how I felt before the game, I was kind of all over the place with where to feel. And Chermiti up front for me, whether or not it's a case of Nadiri just did quite well against Queen's Park, he's not had an awful lot of time on the training pitch. We don't know what he's capable of yet for Motherwell for the Motherwell game, so we'll stick with Chermiti. It's baffling to me that we've went with so many changes, even from last week. JB, what were your standouts from that starting 11? I know you've just touched on it there, but who in what positions would you have rather been swapped in or out?
Well, I probably had four that jumping out at me. I thought Sterling should have been in for Tav because we knew we were going to be up with it. Their biggest threat was going to be exploiting the space on the wings. The big left back who scored against us late last on, can't remember the boy's name from Birmingham. It was a real handful. You knew he was going to get up and down. Yeah, really like him. I don't know, we constantly try and keep an eye on the players that were in the league. I'm not saying he'd be good enough to start for us every week, but certainly it'd be an interesting backup for the likes of Romans. So yeah, that was the first one. Romans we've touched on. I think Magoma, for all of his quality, and I think he's been really consistent this season. He was a wee boy tonight. As I say, I was saying to one of the guys in the club who was sitting next to, he's been used to playing on fantastic pitches down in England, coming through the youth level, playing for England, and probably been used to really nice environments. Motherwell on a what day is it today? I've lost track of days. Wednesday. Windy, rain, players up for the fight. It wasn't a game for him. I'm not saying you might go, Romans hasn't experienced that, but he's played over 100 games in Belgium, a much better standard than the team that we played tonight. So they were that was your base, and what was unfortunate, I thought they were the two worst players on the pitch. And then you go forward, then we've got Scott Olsen there. Unless he's carrying a knock, he has to be playing. He has to be. He has to be able to. He can get the ball from back to front. He can carry it. He's a goal threat. Playing Gassama on the right is just horrific management and decision making. Whenever it has worked, it's worked because of a flash or a moment. It hasn't worked because he's constantly hitting the byline. I mean, yeah, so go there. And then my next one would be Fernandes. You said it yourself. However, not too concerned in reflection on that because of how well they played. And then the big fella up top. I think we've got there's no doubt Nadir he should have been in because that was huge tonight. Do you know what I mean? In terms of the grand scheme of things, you could almost argue it was as important as Sunday, sorry, because all of a sudden we are playing catch up now. The amount of confidence that has just given Hearts and the team across the city, we've obviously scraped through tail end. I just fear that this could be. I just hope, sorry, that this isn't Rolls Clement moment against Motherwell. Funny enough, when Motherwell came to Ibrox and bullied us, and he never recovered from that. I actually think we've got better options on the bench now, a better squad. But yeah, I think really disappointed with that starting 11, and I think it set the tone for me because I don't think the players ever looked comfortable in position. They played like strangers. There was no press. It was one man press constantly. I actually thought the midfield three, and as you touched on there, half the two centre halves I thought were okay, but they were just okay. But we had no outlet at all. Mikey Moore was hiding, Gassama was hiding, and as I say, nothing from your fullback. So you can't afford to play teams like Motherwell playing the way they're playing and set up like that.
Yeah, no, I've wrote down notes throughout the full game. I would be as well just deleting them after that end to the game, to be honest, because we start off okay. Great ball by Diamande in the 6th minute. Raskin takes the nice touch, slots it by the keeper. We're 1-0 up. Great finish, JB. Lovely pass from Diamande. Again, another sign that for me, early doors, that midfield three were doing okay. I thought that they could handle themselves pretty well. Not only just in the physical battle, I thought Chukwani did really well with that, and Raskin seemed, from a different aspect of physicality, looked ready to get stuck in, looked like the Raskin we've learned to love, with the engine to go and drive. After that 6-minute period, we then enter a period from 6 minutes right up until half-time where we don't create anything and we take a massive foot off the gas and allow Motherwell to press. JB, how did you feel once we'd scored the goal? What were your initial feelings? Did you think that's us now plain sailing, or did you think where is this game going to go from here?
Yeah, no, I was just desperate to get the second. As I say, very similar to Aberdeen away. We came out the blocks flying, and you thought, right, the lads are up for it. They've got the bit between the teeth. I always had it in the back of my head. I think I said it on last night's pod. The game wasn't going to get won in the first half. However, the way that we started, we could have been we could have been out of sight if we'd have had the personnel on the pitch to potentially do it. However, we didn't. We our number 9, our guy who's there to score goals for us, is practically useless. Like, in terms of, I put an argument for him to say that we don't create a lot for him, which I think is fair enough. However, he doesn't do anything. The amount of times we got into wide positions and he's just trotting, ball watching, not getting into the kind of the danger area at any time. And I think we're a man's arm with him. Do you know what I mean? He's unfortunately he's got to go down as just a cult hero now, as that guy who scored 2 goals at Parkhead. Because I mean, I'm not sure on his actual numbers now, but you must be looking at, what is it, 4 goals in what, 25, 30 games or something.
Four goals in 17 league games, I believe it is.
Yeah, but
Four
then
goals in
by the time you add your European performances,
yeah.
in your cup games or whatever, but he's in the wrong movie. Honestly, we're a man's arm with him. You'd genuinely be better with Fernandez up there. He's there's just nothing to him. Do you know, like, and you want him to do well because he's a young lad and everything else that goes with it. But he's, I was going to say something quite offensive there in terms of, like, he's just thick. You know, like, he doesn't seem to read the game. He doesn't seem to. People are raving about his hold-up play, but I think we're in a situation with Chimity now that when he does the basics, we're all delighted because we don't even think he's got the basics in him. I was speaking to an Everton player, a former Everton player, I should say, a few weeks ago, who's been in and around the club, and I said, "Oh, what about Chimity? Like?" And then, obviously, do you think he'll come good? He said he's not a professional footballer. He's not. He said in training he couldn't handle the training drills. He couldn't in matches. He didn't look as if he knew how to use his body. The balls would bounce off him. He said even at youth level, like Everton under 21s, 23s, he said he wasn't a standout there. So we can't be surprised that he's not a standout with us. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, so again, I feel like as if we're going 2-footed on a few of the lads tonight, but I think it's a frustration of they've crept back into the stuff where they've let us down in the early half of the season. I think that frustration's kind of boiling over now with it. But yeah, back to your original question. I genuinely thought that first goal would kickstart this team, because this team thrives on confidence. I don't think it helps the fact when you've got Tavernier trying to slow everything down at every single opportunity. There was one there where one of the lad you touched on earlier, the left back Longolo, he went off the pitch over the Hordens, and Butland waited until he was back in the left back position, actually ran back to the halfway line, jogged back to the halfway line before we took that goal kick. We all winning 1-0 away from home. Guys off the pitch, get going, get us up the pitch, and make the most of them being a man down. We're far too nice. We haven't got that hunger to go and get that second goal, that third goal, that fourth goal. And if we go into games like that, especially away from home, we can't be surprised with the outcome that we had today.
No. We'll look at the second half in a bit more detail after we've dissected some of the stats that have came through at half time. From that period up until half time, I'll fast forward. At the half time break, we had 36% possession. Motherwell had 7 fouls, yet to receive any yellow cards or any cautions. We had both had 2 shots each on target. I mean, in terms of a team that goes 1-0 up and then sits back, Danny Rule comes out and mentions to the fans that he doesn't understand why we're booing teams off at 1-0 down. 1-0 up with a man down for Kilmarnock at the weekend. That is another reason why we're doing that, is because we go 1-0 up and we just sit. We just rest on our laurels. We don't seem to we take the foot off the gas. We don't see blood. We don't try and kill teams off. That's the first goal they've conceded since October at Fir Park. And the last person to score was Scott Arfield, that said for Falkirk. This isn't just an accident that's happened. This is good football. We've managed to break down the door. We've managed to get in after 6 minutes and score a goal. And then we just drop it. Like, we just stop everything. We just pressure after pressure after pressure. And the one shining light of any sort of positivity, JB, and I'll come to you with this. Do you believe there's anything in the Chermiti penalty claim? I've had people saying it's a stonewaller. For me, I don't know. The one thing I would say on it, as a kind of devil's advocate, is I don't understand why they don't look at it. But what was your impression on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen it. Obviously, I didn't watch the half-time analysis or anything, but from what I seen, he stood on his foot, tick. His knee has gone into the back of his leg, and he's bowled him over. I don't. I think you'd struggle to see again. It probably falls under the category anywhere else on the pitch. It probably doesn't help the fact that Chimiti's always on his arse. Do you know what I mean? In terms of he's always falling over, his balance is horrific. So you wonder whether the referees just looked at that and going, "He's gone down. He's just gone down easy." I mean, it didn't help the fact that he then decided to rush himself back up whilst they had a set piece at the other end, and then didn't even make it back into the opposition box to defend it. He'd have been better off staying down and making a point. But again, the standard of refereeing is just horrendous. I mean, in terms of the consistency today, booked Diamandi for absolutely nothing, which kind of changed Diamandi's game. He was having to pull out of a lot of things. Raskin got booked, which, okay, fair enough, you might go, that's a yellow card, but then they done that 3 or 4 times after that. Arguably more blatant yellows than that one. So you can kind of go through. I thought the referee all night was just absolutely all over the place. Didn't have the balls to give the red card. I think everybody's seen it live and everybody said that's a shocker. It's bad when Chris Sutton's saying it's a red card. Do you know what I mean? It couldn't get more blatant. But it just goes to show the character of some of these players and the lack of leaders that we've got, that they couldn't rally us round for that, however long was left after that.
Yeah, I think we'll just go straight into the second half, because for me, I thought that when you looked back at it, and it looks as if, like you said, the boy comes in, stands on the back of him, and then the player in front of him means that he can't really fall down at that point. So one player's in front of him, stopping him from coming up, which is natural. Like, that's the job. That's the job of the defender, is to put him off. But then the player coming in at the back, that's a foul for me. So whether or not they should go and look at it at that point in time, obviously they didn't, so there's no point in going on about it. We come out in the second half, no changes. Don't know why. 2 fullbacks were massively struggling. We looked as if we weren't creating anything up top, but we still go out with the same 11, and we just see how they go, because we're already 1-0 up. So we'll just start the second half with a bit more intensity, a bit more pressure. We look as if we're trying to create a bit more chances, and even, as you said, Sutton came out and said that we actually took control of the game in the second half. We play on, good couple of chances from Chermiti. The ball smashes across the box, misses it. That'll be the story of tonight. And then we see the next major talking point is the sending off. JB, how can you even discuss the fact that they have to go to VAR for that? Like, how can a team of referees on the pitch not see that and realise that that's a straight red card instantly?
Yeah, and then the time it took, you could see. I don't think the lad has gone in to try and catch more the way that he has. I think he's just gone in to try and wipe him up, take everything. Do you know what I mean? And because of Moore's quality, he's nipped ahead. But as soon as you fly in at that speed and that height on the ankle, I mean, we're actually lucky we're not talking about Moore potentially having a bad injury off the back of that. That could have been a season ender for him. But in terms of the red card, you're getting a lot of referees. There's him, and is it McDermott, the other one, who just rely on VAR. They're absolutely petrified to give decisions for us. I remember it was at McDermott a few years ago who had, was it 2 or 3 penalty checks in the same game, which he didn't have the balls to give, and they were stonewallers. Almost a case of, well, they won't blame me if I give it. But that said, it was just another horrendous decision from a really poor referee. But the referee is not the reason why we lost tonight, by the way. Just before we start going down the tin hat stuff, like across the city, it's almost a case of there is certain times where you need to look in the mirror and go, right, what could we have done better? The manager, as we've said a few times, that we have to start with the manager, but I think we also have to start with our creative players. Need to take a long look at themselves tonight as well, because they created nothing. The only half chance Schmidt had in the first half was due to really poor Motherwell defending. There might have been one cross that came in that Schmidt got to, but hit the keeper with it, if I remember rightly. And as soon as we had the extra man, you were thinking, right, relax. But it was the complete opposite, unfortunately. I said they'll take it easy now for the next 5-10 minutes after the sending off, and then they'll throw everything at us. And we had 3 or 4 chances to clear that. I thought Sterling was really weak at the back post as well, but I'm getting ahead of myself in terms of their goal. So sorry.
No, I mean, I'm getting ahead of myself going straight forward to the red card, but I think there's something more important to talk about in the substitutions and the formation changes. For me, were as baffling as the starting 11, to be perfectly honest. 61 minutes, Diamande comes off and Nadiri goes on. We see 2 up top. We go for the Red Bull rule, 4-2-2-2. No idea how we plan on playing with that. With fair enough, Raskin and Chukwani can do that role, no bother. But we've got Gassama and Moore playing on. Gassama's an out-and-out winger. There is nobody telling me that he can ever play as a 10 or as an inverted winger. He needs to be high and wide, touching the touchline, but instead we're asking him to drift in for who to overlap? Magoma, who hasn't done it all season. So why are we then asking a player who has not shown that quality so far this season, to in one of the biggest games of the season so far, to just all of a sudden be capable of doing that? Baffling. So that was the first change that we made. We then went on and we made another change at 70 odd minutes, and we took off Gassama and we put on Fernandez. We went to a 5-3-2 again, sitting in, inviting pressure. Terrible timing for that. That was just before the red card, so we're ready to sit in. Instead of then making a change to then capitalise on the fact that they had a red card and that they had a man down, Motherwell sat in, and the next change that we made was Asgard to come on. And Dujon Sterling, Miofsky, and who was the other one? Dujon Sterling, Miofsky, and Asgard all to come on.
Yeah.
How can we sit and say that at the start of the game, we're winning the game, Danny Rill's in a position where he's saying, haha, you've all got it wrong, the tactics were right, I know what I'm doing, to make 2 massive tactical formational changes in the second half that has ended up, for me, completely ruining the game. JB, where do we even start when we're talking about where did it go wrong for you in terms of the tactical changes tonight?
Yeah, I think as the game went on, what the game needed at that point, it either needed composure, it needed runners, or it needed strength. Sterling coming on, I'm not too concerned with that because he gives you all of them 3 things normally, albeit didn't cover himself in glory for the goal. Asgard is a coward. I don't like using, like, I think that's quite deflammatory, but I think he's scared, he's intimidated by the shirt. He floats about. He doesn't tackle. He doesn't sprint. He doesn't break sweat. It's all nice little touches. Not what we needed. And Miofsky, with all due respect, he should be a goal scorer. Do you know what I mean? He's the guy that you keep up top, and he's the guy that you create chances for and score goals. That's what he did at Aberdeen. He's not the guy you bring on in this type of situation. What we needed fresh legs. We needed runners. We needed people that wanted the ball to feet, people that would take responsibility. So again, we've seen that from Romans. We've seen it from Olsen. There's an argument to be made that you bring Ant-Man on ahead of them, ahead of the other two, ahead of Miovski and Asgard, because you say to him, right, pick the ball up, son, and hit that wing, hit that corner, spread it, carry the ball, be brave. But no, bringing them two on was everybody in the club just kind of just went, what's he doing? Why has he done that? And I think it's he's obviously had one eye on Sunday, but at times there was two eyes on Sunday for me. I think he's tried to be too clever tonight. For me, he should have started with his strongest 11, get the game won. Because if that strongest 11 isn't good enough to beat Motherwell, then we've got bigger problems. Do you know what I mean? So go with your strongest 11, get the game won, make 5 substitutions at 2-0. Sound, do that, see what happens. But instead, what we're going to have to do now, it's going to have to be 5 changes on Sunday. So you're having to completely disrupt everything, because I'd imagine Romans comes into your 11, Olsen comes in, Fernandez comes in, Sterling comes in, Nadiri comes in. There's an argument that you're going to be making 6 changes on Sunday for our biggest game of the season. That's not good. Why not start with your strongest 11, get the game won, get the players gelling? You look at the teams in the Premier League. Arsenal might make 1 change. Liverpool might make 1 change. They went last season, I think they went 4 or 5 or 6 games in a title winning run where they didn't change the starting 11 at all. Now, why can't we be doing that against teams like Motherwell? Then it's just really, really frustrating. And I just thought, that, as I say, we'll blame the manager, but because he's we put him on a pedestal, and rightfully so. He deserves to be on that pedestal because of how he's turned stuff around. However, he's I'm just hoping that's a massive learning for him, because he massively underestimated the challenge tonight, and allowing Motherwell to have the ball so much, albeit you might go, well, they didn't create too much either. They created more than us. Jack Butland had 3 or 4. I'll probably say Jack Butland was probably our best player again, which is a damning indictment in terms of the amount of money, the amount of investment that's been made in this squad. But the players' attitude for me, it wasn't there. They didn't look fit. And you do wonder, as I say, that early goal has kind of just maybe gone, we're all right. But let's not kid ourselves either. 1-0 against Dundee up until the 91st minute, and we scored 2 late on. Kilmarnock the other week, against 10 men, first half, absolutely horrendous. So this team is showing that they haven't got the mentality to go to difficult places where teams are going to work harder than you, and you're probably going to slip up, because Hibs dominated us. Let's have it right. We were lucky to get out of there with a point. You could argue, well, they went to Parkhead and done well. However, that was probably more of a reflection on them. Do you know what I mean? They've scraped through their last few games as well. But at the end of the day, points on the board. That's all that matters. So yeah, it's a shame. As I say, if I take a step back, it's almost a case of you just got to hope that we don't dwell on it. But I don't think we will, because there's going to have to be mass changes on Sunday, so it's going to be a different 11.
Yeah, one just on that, JB. One of the comments that I just put up there: not a single point now can be dropped. We need to play Hearts away and probably Motherwell away again in the split. And bearing in mind we've still got Hearts on Sunday and that lot next week. So we if you talked about last week, right? If you're talking about the run of fixtures that we were going to have in February, you're looking at if you're looking at from the Hibs game onwards, if you're going to drop the points against Hibs, you had to win tonight. And if you're going to drop both points in tonight's game and last week, it then means that it's not just must win. You're going to have to beat Hearts and Celtic, and you're going to have to do it quite well. It's not even like, because we're going to need to get goal difference up. This isn't a good position to be in at all, JB. People are saying in the comments it's a title-defining game. What's your take on that, just before we finish up?
Yeah, I mean, I did say on yesterday's pod with me and you, we can't lose our shit if we drop points tonight, because
And here we are.
here we are, lost it. But only because I look at the opposition. It's not like years gone by where you go, they'll go and win every game from now to the end of the season. They're that much better than everybody else. I don't think Celtic will do that. I don't think they'll go on a 10-game win and run. I definitely don't think Hearts will. And I don't think we will either. However, we just have to dust ourselves down now and go in. Sunday is a cup final. Sunday, where you might have looked at that and gone, well, if we get a point there and we win tonight, and then you get a point there, and then you go, right, let's just claw our way back on Heart. Let's make it a real 3-horse race, and we'll we'll go then. Do you know what I mean? But now we've left ourselves with a lot of work to do. We've got to go and win there on Sunday. That'll give that, as I said earlier, that'll give Hearts and Celtic a massive lift. Do you know what I mean? They'll be bouncing into the weekend's games now, knowing that they can put additional pressure on us. Obviously, Hearts coming to us, and Celtic doing what they've done. Hearts coming to us now, they'll come in and look to frustrate. If we'd have won tonight comfortably, the fans would have been quite accepting of our performance on Sunday. You know, like if we were 0-0 half time, bit sticky, I think the fans would have stuck with it. There's going to be noise on Sunday now. The players have got to come and react, and they've got to show us that they're up for the fight, or up for the hunters, as the manager said. But no more. You can't make no more of that. That was the team that started today was a League Cup type team. Do you know what I mean? Somebody made the point today. We started stronger on Sunday against Queen's Park. That team on Sunday against Queen's Park, I think, would have probably competed better than the team that competed today, which is quite damning on this team. But yeah, dust ourselves down, mate. As I say, title's not over tonight. Do you know, like it's not. It just isn't. There's going to be plenty of twists and turns. It's just a real sore one tonight. I think if Celtic had dropped 2 points at home to Livingston and we drew, then you go, right, take a breath. Hard. We've had the harder game. They've got the 3 points over the line. Hearts yesterday, they've got the 3 points. They've got the point. They've got the 3 points over the line. There's going to be weekends where we're going to do that as well. But unfortunately tonight that definitely wasn't the night. But they've got to bounce back on Sunday, and got to show a hell of a lot of character.
Absolutely. No, we'll leave it there, but I totally agree. If you'd have told me that we were going to be 5 points behind Hearts in February, given where we were, I would have been quite happy. But the manner in which we've done it in the last few weeks seems lacklustre, to say the least. We've ran about for 90 minutes. We've not played very well against Hibs. We've came out tonight. We've bottled it at the last minutes. Motherwell played the game very, very tactically clever with that last 10 minutes. I wrote on my notes when we made the subs, Motherwell are making changes here. They're going to go for it in the last 10 minutes. Too much time wasting, too much pettiness rolling about the floor, which ended up just costing us at the end of the game when we wanted it probably wrapped up. So yeah, poor performance tonight. Poor tactical performance from Danny Rule. Probably the first time I could safely say that I think he has got it completely wrong tonight. I think there's been some times where it's just been a matter of opinion. I don't think there's anybody that's going to be watching this game tonight who's going to come back and say, well, you know what, I actually think Danny Rule started the game with a good intent. I think he got it wrong. I do still have faith in Danny Rule to take the team on and get us the title. 5 points is nothing when we've still got this many games to play. So let's kick on Sunday and let's get the gap down to 2 points and take it to them the following week and make it count. Thank you to everybody that's been tuning in, and thank you from the friends across the way who have been commenting. It gets all the money into our bank account, so keep commenting as much as you like, guys. That's absolutely brilliant. You've just been banned and blocked and deleted comments throughout, so that's magic. Yes, we will be back tomorrow night, I believe. Ian and Tommy will be coming on, and if they still want to talk about what this means, I suppose, going forward, and a quick look at Sunday's game and how we prepare for that. But yes, thank you very much for those who tuned in. As always, make sure you like and subscribe. But from us tonight, it's a sore one. We'll need to dust ourselves off and get to bed. Right. Good night.